All right. Well, it's an exciting day here on Fate Chats. I'm your host, Andrew Burnett, and today I've got my great friend Paul Secord with me. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great, Andrew. It's nice to be on your program.
Well, for those that don't know you, share with us a little bit about how you got into gospel music and how it came into the picture for you.
Well, I actually, most people don't know this, but I actually grew up on a Southern gospel bus. My family, the Secords, they traveled and sang for many, many years. And, uh, and then once I was school age, we came off the road, stopped touring. And, but music was always my first love, and music was always the way. So all the way through, elementary, middle, and high school, I was taking piano lessons, vocal lessons all along the way, and then went to school for music. Got my degree in vocal performance, classical vocal performance. So I thought I was going to be an opera singer, um, but uh, but gospel music was always in my roots, and you can't outgrow your roots too far. And so I came back to gospel music after being a worship leader at a mega church, and after singing for Disney for a few years, and after doing a number of other things. Gospel music just felt like home for me. So I came back, and I've been making a living in gospel music for about the last 14 years now. 9 of those years were as an artist, full time touring artist. And then the last 5 years with Godsey Media here in Nashville, Tennessee. And for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been coaching other artists and mentoring them on how to do everything that I've done.
So, who would you say would have been some of your earliest influences in gospel music?
Man, I grew up loving the Gaither Vocal Band. Now, listen, my dad loved the Cathedrals. He was just a huge fan of them, and so anytime we were on the RV, we'd often be listening to their music, and I mean it was great, amazing music. I just always really appreciated the Gaither Vocal Band. I appreciated the little more progressive nature of their music, and it was a good fit for me. But that love of harmony singing carried me all the way through high school and college. I was always involved in choirs. I was always involved in classical music that was harmony type music. So harmony singing has always been my thing. So if you want to talk to me about some of my biggest influences, Mozart's going to be in there. Bach is going to be in there. And the Gaither Vocal Band is going to be in there. Rascal Flats are going to be in there. These are just great harmony singers and groups that I've loved over the years.
So, as you mentioned, you coach artists as the gospel road coach. Share with us a little bit about where that idea originally came from.
Well, Andrew, as you well know, it's not easy to go out and make a living doing, in gospel music, doing this thing that we love to do so much. I love to sing, love being on a platform in front of people and leading them in a worship experience. That's something I'm still blessed to do today. Um, and I saw some artists that were struggling and making some decisions. This was well into the social media era, so people were. I saw this one post one week on Facebook, and this guy said, "I can't go out this weekend and sing because I don't have uh, because I know the weekend is going to cost me X amount. I don't remember the amount, but I remember the guy, and I won't say who it was. But he said because singing is going to cost me this amount, and I don't have it, so I can't go out and minister and sing this weekend." And so he had to cancel a date. And I looked at that and I was like, Lord, like, would you help me to reach as many artists as I can with some way to help them thrive and some way to help them grow so that they never have to look at their bank account and say, I can't go out and sing this weekend because of this. That is, I mean, when God asks me to do something, when He asks you to do something, Andrew, we want to be able to say yes and amen, and here we go, and let's go do it. But as you well know, the cost of living is high and it's going up.
Hmm.
And so fuel costs a lot, food costs a lot, lodging, travel, vehicles, product, recording, all of these things, they cost a lot of money. And the vast majority of artists that I know, I'm outside, so every now and then I'll get dive bombed by a mosquito or something. So if I start flailing around, you'll know what's up. Um, but the most of the artists that I know actually are just um you know just pulling out of their 401k, or they're pulling out of their household income, or they're draining their savings account to go do this thing that they really feel like they've been called to do. And in many cases it's not wise. And there are some practices that we can do on a regular basis out on the road, and in our concerts and in our events, and when we plan our tours, and when we take offerings, and when we sell our music. There's some things that we can do that'll really help us to simply fund our ministry and keep the wheels on the bus. And those are the things I love to teach, so that we're not making decisions that are rooted in fear. Rather, we're making decisions that are rooted in, what did God ask me to do? Okay, I'm going to go do that. I see too many artists making decisions rooted in fear, and too many artists having to pull their punches um, because of their lack of funds, or because their ministry is upside down in expenses. And and one day I saw that post. It tugged at my heart. I complained to my wife about it, and she said, "Paul, put up or shut up." I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, you know how to help them, so why don't you help them?" And I said, "Dawn, that my wife's name is Dawn. So they aren't going to listen to me. I'm a nobody. They don't know me." She said, "Well, they might listen. God's putting it on your heart to share this information and this knowledge or wisdom or whatever it is with them. Then you should share it." And man, I just felt it so strongly. I just started sharing it. I started sharing it with videos, and I started sharing it with individuals. And since that was 5 or 6 years ago, and since then, I've been blessed to personally coach, either in video calls or live and one-on-one sessions, or private sessions, or in group sessions, over 200 artists that are in the Southern gospel music category, and a handful of artists that are, of course, Christian and modern worship category as well. But it's a blessing to do it. I asked God to send me 100. I said, "God, send me 100 of them, because I want to help them." And now I think I was thinking too small. Now I want 1,000. I want 1,000 artists that are out there thriving and ministering the gospel in these little churches all across the country, reaching people. Um, that's what it's all about. I want to give them as many tools as I can to go do that, and to do it well, to do it with excellence, because that's what God deserves, and to not go broke doing it. Because if they go broke, it all comes to a screeching halt, and I don't like to see that happen.
So, if there was a struggling artist watching this broadcast or listening to the podcast later on, what's the top 5 tips you can give them to help excel their ministry?
First off, I would start with the artist's number one problem. Any artist in any genre, and this is from secular music all the way through Christian to modern worship to classical to jazz to wherever. The largest artist issue is that they're unknown. It's their anonymity. It's that nobody knows them. And in gospel music, um, I don't think the vast majority of artists that I coach, and even last night, I put something up on Facebook. I just asked artists what the three largest expenses that they have are. And out of 100, 150 replies, I had like 3 or 4 people total that mentioned marketing. And so I would say the first thing that you need to do more of is letting people know what you do. They can't come to your concert, and they can't stream your music, and they can't download your album or watch your video or hear the powerful message in your song if they don't know you exist. So that's the first thing. They got to know you exist, man. So marketing is really, really important. Social media marketing is vital. I recommend marketing in print if you can afford it. I think there are avenues for that, like Singing News Magazine. I think they do a great job, and I've seen great results from some artists that did that consistently. Really, I love marketing to radio and on radio. I think that's important. And so we should constantly be marketing. That's one thing. Another thing I would highly recommend to artists is that they take their craft, like their skill and their talent, a little more seriously. Sometimes we feel that, we grew up singing in church, and we can kind of get proud of the fact that we've never taken a lesson. I've coached these artists before. They're like, "Paul, man, I sing in front of 100 crowds a year. I've never taken a lesson, and I'm proud of it." And I'm like, "Well, what if you were 10 or 20 or 30% better? Imagine the greater impact that you could have." Imagine the additional doors that could have opened for you in music and in ministry. So I always like to encourage every artist to get lessons because a ton of them don't. A ton of them don't. So we should constantly be honing our skills and honing our craft and shaping ourselves into the arrow that God is using to go out and reach the world. So marketing lessons. Also, I think Andrew, and you've probably heard this over time because I know you've been a DJ before and you've spun music before. It's important that our recordings are high quality recordings, and I'm not just saying that because I produce music. I'm blessed to work with Scott Godsey at Godsey Media, and we produce some amazing artists there. We produce some great songs. We have songs on the charts right now. It's super exciting. Um, but if you don't have a quality recording, then you kind of handcuff yourself as far as your ability to grow your ministry. And if you just want to, you know, record an album and hand it out to your friends and family or some people that support you at your church, that's one thing. You don't got to go, break the bank to do that. However, if you do want your song to go out into the world and into the marketplace, you need to know it's going to be compared with music that's out in the world and in the marketplace, right? So it's got to be great quality. So I always say get the best quality recording that you can afford to accomplish the goals that you have. And if you don't know what those goals are, take a few minutes one day and write them down. Write them down so you know exactly what your goals are, and then you produce your album that direction. The last thing I think is really really important. I'm sorry, there's two things. Um, I think that there is we underestimate the importance of great photos. We just do. But in this world, they see us before they hear us. They see us before they hear us. And so image isn't everything. And if we're, talking to our Christian brothers and sisters, they shouldn't judge us according to our image. We would hope that they don't. But I know that I'm not going to go buy a coffee maker and put it on my counter if the coffee maker's ugly. I want one that looks good. So if we wonder why we can't get dates or we wonder why people aren't booking us and our pictures are awful, it's because they're judging us according to those pictures before they've ever heard us. So great photos, great photos. If there is one thing in your whole lineup that you splurge on, and I have artists that have learned this, and I'm telling you, it's so important. If there's one area that you go all in, get great photos because people will decide how good you are just based on how good your photo is. It doesn't seem fair, but that's just the way we all do it. The last thing, Andrew, it might be the most important. We have to keep God at the center of all of it. I spend a lot of time talking about photos and recording and business practices and selling and taking offerings and touring and stuff like that. I don't speak about my relationship with the Lord as much. There are other people that are out there that are focused on, that write great devotionals and write great books, and they're great biblical teachers. And so they have that space covered. And I don't consider myself an expert in that area, but I do know this. If we're in this for the money or for the fame, we're doing the wrong thing. I'm in it for the Lord. And my heart aches for the empty seats every time I go to a concert because there's more people that could have been there to hear the life-changing message that's in this music that we're blessed to make and sing. You got to keep Jesus at the center of it. You got to keep God right there in the middle. And your relationship with the Lord, that personal walk with Him, your ministry is an outpouring of that. It's an outpouring of that. And if you don't have that regular input from the Word and from the Holy Spirit, and you're not opening yourself up and making yourself available to God in that way, then what do you have to pour out? What you have to pour out then is just going to be music. And that's great. But we're not just in this to make great music. I want my music to be great, but I want the message to be life-changing. So I got to stay connected to God all along the way. I got to listen to Him every step.
So we all know that tragedy hit our gospel music family just last week when the Nealons all passed away in a plane crash. And their poor daughter Autumn. I just sit here and pray for her every time I think about it. What tragedy that was. And I know Godsey Media has had opportunities to work with the Neelands. So share with us one of your closest memories about working with Jason, Kelly, and Amber.
Um, I remember during um, two instances. Uh, I remember during the COVID pandemic, we had the Neelands there at Zenith Studios in north of Nashville, around Hendersonville, and we had them in for a concert that we live streamed, and they were great. They were just great. They're super, super nice people. Shortly after, I went to a concert of theirs here in Nashville, Tennessee, and as much as they've done, as much as they've, the stages that they've been on, and they did a performing arts center, tour all across the country. That's not something that's common for people in Southern gospel music. But here's what they did. This is my favorite thing I've ever heard about them. And I wasn't a part of it myself, but my business partner Scott Godsey was, and he tells this story. But they put together like an Americana album, like Americana music, roots music, kind of in their style. It's a little bit bluegrassy, a little bit gospely, a little bit mountain music, and he put together that tour for them to go to these performing arts centers all around the country. Well, they weren't being billed necessarily as the gospel family that we know and love, the Neelands. They weren't necessarily being billed as that, but they were going out on this Americana music tour, and that's how they got into these performing arts centers. Well, performing arts centers across the country notoriously, or maybe not notoriously, but generally would be characterized as not huge fans of gospel music. They're going to be a little more liberal leaning, or a little more just performing arts and leaning, and not necessarily gospel leaning at all. And there was one instance where they were at a concert, and the director of the Performing Arts Center made it very, very clear to them that they were not to talk about Jesus, or do any sort of like overtly religious material. Well, they did this one song, and this is me just kind of retelling this story that as I heard it. Well, they did this one song that completely captivated the audience, and of course, it was a song that had a little bit of the gospel message in it. And so, um, when they went out, they had an intermission, and when they went out to do the second part of their program, which I think was normally mostly gospel stuff, again, the director of the Performing Arts Center, said, "Hey, listen, when you go out there, you got to, you got to toe the line on this. You can't be sharing the gospel. You can't be talking about Jesus. That's not what these people are here for." But man, for the next few songs, they laid some amazing gospel music on these folks. Now, it was still Americana, and it was still roots music, but it was the kind of life-changing music that that they were known for. And when they were done, they came off the platform, and that Performing Arts Center, the lady that ran the Performing Arts Center, she was just a bag of tears, and was amazed by what they had just done. And they hadn't preached, but they, using their gift and using their anointing, had brought something really special to that little Performing Arts Center. And even though she thought she was against it, the director of that Performing Arts Center knew that she had just witnessed something amazing, something that was otherworldly. And in my mind, that's the best story I've ever heard about them. Um, and it's a testament to what they truly, truly believe, what they were really all about. Because how many gospel or Christian bands would go into that situation? They say, "Hey, you can't talk about Jesus, and you can't do this kind of music, but you can do all this kind of music." And they'd be like, "Okay, well, it's a paid gig. I'm here. I'm going to do what they want." Well, they did what the Performing Arts Center wanted, and then they also put their mark on it. They put God's mark on it, and uh, that's my favorite story about them. Scott Godsey tells it way better than I do, but I'm telling you, it's a first time I heard it, it was very moving. And then my other experience with uh, with the Nealons was actually with Jason Nealon. He's a really savvy businessman, and was running that farm out there. Had a beautiful venue out there, and and during the COVID era, Scott and I were doing some courses that we were teaching online, and he just donated some of his time. He came on and spoke into the lives of our students and was really open about it, about just some different ideas and different ways that things that they could use on the road to help them be more successful. And I just appreciated that about him, just his open heart, good communicator, um, and all of this stuff just more speaks to their heart. We haven't even touched on the fact that they were just amazing singers too. I mean, but you can talk all day about them. They will be sorely, sorely missed. Um, and who's going to fill their shoes? That's a country song. That's a country song, but somebody needs to step up and fill those shoes. I love young artists, and I love when I see a young artist that is thirsty, and that wants to reach the world with their music, especially in our Southern gospel genre, because it's pretty rare. And so when I find them, I do my best to lean into them, because these legends, whether they leave early or they leave at the end of their projected life, somebody has to fill those shoes. Somebody has to carry that mantle and carry that torch for this music and for the gospel. And so we need to pour into those youngsters even more than we think, even more than we have. We need to pour into them.
Well, Paul, it has been an honor talking to you. It's always great being able to talk to you, my friend. Share with the folks how they can find out more about Gospel Road Coach.
Well, Gospel Road Coach, mostly on Facebook. I also do have a website, gospelroadcoach.com. But Gospel Road Coach, you can find me on Facebook. I also have, this is probably the really cool thing, and it's completely free for everybody that's listening here today. I have a private Facebook group that has just about 1,000 gospel artists in it, and we are all there to help each other thrive and grow. I mentor the room and coach the room. I monitor every single chat that happens in there, and if somebody comes in with a bad attitude or slinging falsehoods, I give them the boot. That's how we keep it healthy, man. So we got 1,000 artists in there that love Jesus, that love music, that love traveling and singing, and it's called the Thriving Christian Music Artist Facebook group for artists that want to thrive and grow. And it's a really super long name. It's like longer than the First Mount Olive Baptist Church of the Second Pew. It's really long. But if you find me, you can find that room. Just go to Gospel Road Coach on Facebook. Gospel Road Coach is also on Instagram. I think I have a little bit of stuff over on TikTok, but Facebook is where most of our people are. That's where most of our artists are. So that's where I spend the vast majority of my time. And also, if somebody is interested in working with God See Media, or wants to have me produce an album for them, I produce a lot of vocals and do a lot of work with Scott Godsey there at some great studios here in Nashville. They can also reach me there, paul@godsey.media. Paul@godsey.media. It's easy to reach me. I'm everywhere. Just Google it. Can't miss me. I got lots of free material that'll help you grow. And if you need one-on-one sessions, I do that as well.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for the opportunity today to talk with you. God bless you, and I look forward to the next time we can talk again.
Me too, Andrew. Blessings, man. I hope you have a really great day. We'll see you, buddy.